What's in a name? This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host, Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is the URL for our website, and you can go there and find out all about us and our partners, including Deep Discount, who we'll be visiting with later in the broadcast. And you'll also learn about TFG Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast. And if you're an audio listener, that drops into your feed probably already. So there you go. Before I forget, here on the Focus Group, we're going to be having a Christmas special. We're airing a show between Christmas and New Year's. And we thought it would be fun to hear from all of you, our listeners, about... we've narrowed it down to Christmas office party foibles and Secret Santa fails. I mean, you could expand on that if you like. But if you have a quick story for us and you want to share it and we're going to play it on the show, you can call us and leave a voicemail at 508-936-3439. That's 508-936-3439. Any stories that we use, you're going to get a pair of Focus Group Radio socks, highly coveted, and this is the purple variety that we still have. And then Tim had a great idea on one of our last shows. He said, you could also just send us the story to letters@focusgroupradio.com. You could either write it up and we'll read it on air, or you could even record a little voice memo and attach it as an MP4 or something, or MP3 and something like that. So many ways to reach us, but we would love to air some fun, those crazy Christmas stories we know everybody has, right?
Right. And if you go to our social media at Facebook, the phone number and email address is listed there as well. At focusgroupradio.com, at Focus Group Radio on Facebook, or at The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash on Facebook. Two groups, two different sets of people. I don't get it.
It looks like a nut. Looks like a pump. Feels like a sneaker.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm freshly back from a trip to Las Vegas.
Did you win? Did you black 17, John, or red 17?
I don't gamble, but the town managed to get its hands into my pocket anyway, and I'm going to explain. So this trip, this is because we're celebrating Bob's birthday soon. He loves the town. We've been many times. Tim and I went. The Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Bureau used to be a partner of ours when we were on Sirius, so we've been a lot. But this time we decided to stay down at the Fremont Street area, which is considered the original old downtown. And the hotel we stayed at was across from a really cool museum called the Mob Museum. It's an old post office building, really well done. So we landed around 6. We were having dinner at a famous pizza place called Pizza Rock on Fremont Street, or 3rd Street around there. We were going to have that. We had an hour to kill, so we decided to walk Fremont Street, and they have this big light. Tim, do you remember the whole lighting thing over the street,
the light
canopy?
Right.
Yeah. Well, Nevada is a you can have dispensaries. You can get cannabis, and I thought, well, I'm on vacation. Maybe I'll go to a dispensary and get a little cannabis. I looked on the map, and there was one like a 20-minute walk away, and I didn't want to walk 20 minutes. There's a couple, but they're not. And they're official. They're so.
But not convenient, it sounds like.
They're not overly convenient. No. And you know what? Bob figured out that they don't want them too close to the Strip because you don't want people, the Strip. So we're walking along Fremont Street, and I look to my right, and I see a store called The Club. The Club. And you could just walk right in, and they seem to be selling cannabis and they had all these advertisements, pre-rolls, vape pens, the whole bit. So I go in and I walk up to the counter, and there's all these things in the counter. I said, what's the smallest little vape pen you have? The guy goes, it's this one right here. And I said, well, could I maybe do sativa? Well, I don't know much about sativa. I prefer other things. $90 for this little vape pen, which was off the charts, right? It's way too expensive, but I paid anyway because I'm kind of tired. In my brain, it's 9 or 10 o'clock at night. We were walking along, and I have a couple of hits of this little vape pen. We go to the Pizza Rock. We have a nice dinner. I have a little bit more, and I'm realizing that it's doing nothing. Absolutely. It's just doing nothing. I go to sleep. I slept very well, actually, and I now have a reason why. I wake up the next morning. I begin thinking about the pen and the box and the whole experience. And just for shits and giggles, I go on online, and I typed the name of this place in, the club, Fremont Street, and up comes a whole bunch of stuff. And there was a Reddit page about angry the club patrons. This place should be closed down by the Better Business Bureau. This is a fraud. You know what the store was selling?
Was it CBD?
That's it, CBD. They didn't bother to tell you. So Bob wakes up and he goes, I just thought of something, sweetie. I said, what? He goes, we didn't have to show our ID. We didn't have to go through like multiple doors of security to get in. We just walked in, right? All the signs were there that this was not, it was legitimate if you were just buying CBD, but apparently people go there with the expectation of getting actual cannabis. So later that morning, we walked down to a place called Canna Stars, S-T-A-R-Z, on Las Vegas Boulevard, literally a block away from the Pawn Stars location. Remember we went there once?
Which is not pretty.
This store was it was really like crystal chandeliers, a waterfall thing. All the counters looked like teller windows from a casino. It was really well done. I got to the counter. I asked the guy, I get this really tiny little thing, vape pen. And I mentioned the club. He goes, oh. He goes, I've got tons of those stories already. He goes, today. And it was 11 in the morning.
So people go there? How much did the thing cost at the real place?
At the official place? $25.
So they charge you $90 for nothing, essentially.
For nothing, basically. Yeah.
I'd have gone ballistic. Did you go back?
No. And you know
the
what
club
Bob said
and make a scene, throw it, rip the place apart.
We decided it was a story for the focus group, and Bob says, we may not gamble, but Vegas gets you no matter what.
Well, you gambled. You went to the club.
Went to the club.
I can't believe that, though. That's crazy. So was the other stuff okay?
It's just fine. It was exactly what you would need to get you through a couple days of Vegas, especially walking on the Strip. And, Tim, it's not changed. When we stayed down there, you and I used to comment on how crowded it was. Here's another thing for you, Tim. We had lunch at Planet Hollywood on the day we left, and I looked down the Strip to the Luxor. Do you remember the walk you did from Planet Hollywood? Mm-hmm. You were sick and you had to get all the way down to the Lux. Yeah.
Right. To go see Edie, we went to New York.
You got to New York. It was New York.
Yeah. And Edie was, and Andrew was, cracking the whip. You could tell by the pictures I'm just, sick. And then you got sick at the tail end. Uh-huh. All we had were saltines and Gatorade. You brought me saltines and Gatorade. And then you were able to at least get home. But no, were people still walking around with the huge tubes of frozen drinks and all that sort of stuff? And
you got it, 100%.
Really?
And the remnants of the F1, they had that big race in Vegas.
Yeah.
They cut down all the trees in front of the Bellagio. They had grandstands built into the lagoon at Lagoon. You couldn't even watch the fountains. I mean, the amount of infrastructure they built for that race, and a lot of the local Uber drivers would say to you, could you imagine spending $2,000 to sit in a grandstand and watch a car go by in a second? Tim, you would not believe what they did to transform the city to have a car race. It was crazy.
I wonder if it brought in any money.
Locals say no. The locals say it was a
bust. Did you get to see any shows? I wanted to see the B-52s. I don't know if they were in residence, but the tickets were outrageous, I thought.
For what?
For the B-52s.
They were very expensive. They were not doing performances while we were there. A lot of shows were dark.
Yeah.
Because we went Monday to Thursday. We did see David Copperfield because we always wanted to see.
How was it?
Okay, I'm not going to shit can it too much, but he's an illusionist. Right. Bob leans over at one point. He goes, I wouldn't call this magic. I'm like,
was
no.
It a green screen?
Close.
Stop.
Yeah.
What was going on?
He just did a lot of stuff. And at one point, a little alien puppet he interacts with on stage named Blue, who looked like Baby Yoda from The Mandalorian. I mean, at one point, we're like, oh my. We were happy to be there. We had a fun time. But
how much was the show?
How much was it? Oh, it was like $90 a ticket.
And so is he doing tricks and things, or is it?
He did a little bit, but real magic is sleight of hand. When you want to be near.
Were people happy with that too, or was it like the club?
Well,
were people leaving saying, "Are you kidding me?"
The applause was tepid. People seemed to enjoy it. I mean, it was. I keep saying to anybody who asks, like even the Uber drivers, I would say, the best show that we ever saw on the Strip, and Tim, you and I saw it, was Donnie and Marie.
Right.
And one driver who was probably close to our age, he was like, oh, God. He goes, listen, you nailed it. He goes, Donnie and Marie, they were show people.
Yes.
They knew how to put on a show.
Yeah. There's a show act and a lounge act.
It brought back memories of the Popoff Pet Circus that we saw at Planet Hollywood with the bird that flew off the stage into Andrew's hair. I mean, yeah.
We all thought that was supposed to be part of it. Remember, the bird went crazy. That was animal abuse. That Popoff circus, that Russian that had all those animals caged. You know, you and I, by the time we were at the Popoff circus, we were really scratching at that point. And it was, we were seeing 3 shows a day, remember?
We were running on fumes, Tim.
Yeah.
We were running on fumes. And we
But
were
some of the
staying at
shows
Planet
were,
Hollywood.
yeah, some of the shows were great. I regret that we didn't stay. It was the last night. We were all exhausted. And we were going to, what was it, 10 or 11 o'clock to go see Carrot Top.
Yes.
And we just said, and I would have liked to see, we just said enough because we were just been exhausted.
Fried.
But yeah. But I mean, we saw the one with the Playgirl, the Playboy woman. We saw, I mean, I think we saw just about every show. Cher, which was great.
Saw Cher, yeah.
I still tell people how when Cher would come out with one outrageous outfit, every song was a new outfit, and the crowd would just laugh.
Go crazy.
Because, you know, she was just, you know, here she comes. It was one after another. But, yeah, so it was,
So there you go. So Vegas always you will never walk. That
house
town
always
doesn't
wins.
exist.
The house always wins, John.
You fly over the city, you're like, oh, I'm going to pay off my college debt. I'm going to pay off debt. And then you realize no. And even if you don't gamble, go to the club.
Well, you
All
did
right.
gamble.
Without further ado, Mr. Bennett, what caught your eye?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
So I was poking around. You know, I love different things about states, and particularly I used to remember as a little kid, I remembered all the license plates from the states, which were quite...
The colors?
Well, it was a simpler time then. And, you know, Connecticut was a kind of a royal navy blue with white letters, and Massachusetts was white with red letters, and New Hampshire was white with green, and Vermont was green with white. And, you know, states of New York was the blue with the orange with the blue letters.
Yep.
And Pennsylvania was the blue with the orange. I mean, they all had their thing. Don't take my color. New Jersey, I think, is one of the few that's never changed. It was beige with the black letters.
That's correct, yeah.
And so all the states, with the advent of all this new printing stuff, everybody's doing all these crazy things with license plates and the mottos and the back designs, and now you can get all these custom plates. So Kansas decided it was going to redesign its license plate for 2024 and open up essentially a shitstorm with the residents. So it says Kansas is going back to the drawing board after hundreds of people blasted the state's new license plate design for next year. Many saying it resembles those of other states and also a rival state university in neighboring Missouri. So the governor, Laura Kelly, says she's heard the residents loud and clear. She said elected officials should be responsive to their constituents, which is why she's stopping the process. And they're not going to issue this new plate. And she's going to have them get new designs and have residents vote on them. They said one of the major complaints was the color of the design. It was wheat yellow, and it had a background of black and dark blue text, which everybody said was too similar to the color scheme of the University of Missouri, which was a rival to the University of Kansas. And then they also said, and she said, well, technically the colors were navy and yellow with black digits, not the Missouri colors, but people didn't care anyway. That's the way it looked. The design, and then people went on to social media. They said there were comments such as, please give Kansas the opportunity to choose from a few designs that are unique and reflect our Kansas pride. Why would you want to use Missouri's colors on our plate? This is so uninspired. People said they were embarrassed. Others said it reminded them of the New York plate. Somebody else said it was too similar to the Texas plate. And so they went on and on. The governor did say at the end, she said, you know, when I ran for governor, I promised to be bipartisan. I think I've done it. She said, I succeeded on bringing Kansas across the political aisle together by everyone disliking the new plate. And so she promises to do better. So if you're watching online, you can see the plate. I don't think it's too bad, but I think it's odd.
The bottom one's the refresh, the new one?
Yeah, so right. So the new one it's that yellow or that harvest, that gold color with black, and their motto is in Latin is kind of to the stars.
Ad astra per, yeah.
And but the old plate or the current plate is what's above there if you're watching on the video.
Which has
feed on
the
YouTube.
saying ad astra in Latin, so you'd have to know it meant to the stars, right? I mean,
Right.
the minute you sent this over to me and I saw the yellow, well, the gold and the navy or the black, I immediately thought of New York's plate. It does look very similar, and I didn't know about the Missouri thing, but
Right, I didn't know about the Missouri thing either. Of course, if you live there, you would, and then of course the stars because of Texas. And they said that so they did hire a new a design firm, and I actually looked at some of the designs, and they're quite cool. I mean, they really did. I went to social media to see what they're looking at. And Kansas is known for sunflowers. Some people incorporated sunflowers. Some did some Native American imagery, but far better than just what they were initially going to put out. So the people spoke, and Kansas will be getting a new license plate.
The people spoke. And it was bipartisan.
Bipartisan. So what caught your eye, Mr. Nash?
As typical with Caught My Eye, Tim and I always come up with different things. And I think this is really up your lane, Tim. I've been landing these stories that usually you find. So let's see what you think of this. There was a attorney who was an Ohio attorney suspended after pooping into a Pringles can, an empty can, and throwing it from his car. Attorney Jack Blakesley claimed he enjoyed imagining the look of surprise on people's faces when they discovered his creations. So he's a criminal defense attorney. His name is Jack Blakesley. He's he was arrested for this, basically. So the Ohio Supreme Court suspended Blakesley on Tuesday for some decidedly unprofessional behavior, pooping in a Pringles can and flinging it into the parking lot. And this is the key, of a crime victim advocacy center in Cambridge, Ohio.
Oh, Cambridge, that's right near Marietta.
Yes, the court suspended Blakesley for 1 year with 6 months stayed for the gross act and said his conduct adversely reflects on his fitness to practice law. The court noted there was clear and convincing evidence that Blakesley targeted the Haven for Hope Center, which employed people from whom he admitted he'd known for years and whom he was probably going to see in court just minutes after tossing the wretched Pringles can into the center's parking lot. Surveillance video shows Blakesley driving by the parking lot, slowing down, turning around, and passing it a second time. He then tosses the poopy can out of his car and drives off to the courthouse. A witness did, in fact, witness this, and she filed a report with the Cambridge Police Department. He pled guilty to misdemeanor charges and disorderly conduct. He was charged a fine of $248. It's funny when they come up with numbers like that, by the way. They might as well just say $249.56. I mean,
Well, there's probably littering and then a court charge. Right.
You're right. There's probably a standard thing. At his disciplinary hearing this week, Blakesley denied that he intentionally chose the center. Rather, he claimed he simply had a habit of putting his feces in the containers and randomly tossing them from his vehicle as a prank. So this is, according to him, this is not
Even
the first time.
Yeah.
He estimated that he did this at least 10 times a year. 10 times a year. Almost once a month.
Did they show a picture of him?
No.
I gotta
The
look
article
him up.
only showed a guy holding it like a
Where
Pringles
did you find
can
this?
shot.
Was this in a reputable paper or what?
Yes, Tim.
The Times? Was this?
I don't remember where, but it's...
This is funny. Well, part of me wonders, how he maneuvered to get it right in the can.
He did good, right? I mean,
He did. He got a shot in there, and then I guess he put the cap on.
Yes. This was a definite thought out process, right?
I mean, yeah, and I'm trying to think what other things you could poop in. I guess the Pringles cans probably makes the most sense.
It was HuffPost, by the way.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I just thought that was...
That's a good one. Yeah, I would have loved that one. I've got to look this guy up and see what he looks like. I'm going to have to
loved it,
Google his name. That's a good one.
All right, folks. As many of you know, our partner here on the Focus Group is Deep Discount. We would encourage you to go to our site, focusgroupradio.com, and click on the Deep Discount logo and begin your shopping experience. There's obviously movies and TV shows, but there's toys and games, vinyl. There's even record players. Remember record player? I remember turntables. Why am I calling it a record player? It's a turntable. You can get a ton of stuff at Deep Discount, and this is the time of year to do it because it's last minute gift shopping. Holidays are headed your way. And of course, we here on the Focus Group have a couple recommendations for you. So as I said, gifts aplenty. And Mr. Bennett, with that, I will pass it to you for what would you get there?
So I was poking around on the front page and went to some of the popular movies, and something that I've never watched, but the more I read into this, the more interested I got. This originally came out in 1967, and it's called Clam Bake.
I couldn't stop laughing when you sent this link over. I was like, where the hell did you find this?
And it's been re-released this past September 2023. And it stars Elvis Presley, Will Hutchins, Bill Bixby, a few other stars of the time. And you can get it on Blu-ray or DVD. The DVD is $16.59, and the Blu-ray, or I'm sorry, the DVD, you can get the record of it or the music of it, but you can get it on Blu-ray for $19.25, so under $20. It's essentially, this was the last movie that Elvis did of this genre. He did 25 films as a single man. This was the last one he did, they said, as a single man. And this was the last of his beach, the beach sort of movies that he did, called Clambake, and noted to be the worst movie that he did. And also noted to be one of the worst movies in the genre of all time. They actually said it was a Citizen Kane of these beach bingo sort of movies. They said it was, it's really bad. It's horrible goodness. It's so bad, in fact, that it may be the best beach party movie ever made. It's awfully fantastic. And Elvis plays a rich man who decides he wants people to like him for who he is, and so he becomes this kind of ski instructor, water ski instructor coach. And they said the use of green screens, particularly, they said the New York Times said that this was such a clinker. It came out, and they said the use of green screens was just unbelievable. They said they used it for everything. They said it took green screens to a step beyond. It said everything in the movie is green screened. And they said when he's supposed to be at the ocean, there's actually Elvis with mountains in the background. And he was supposed to be in Miami. They said the starlets looked all lacquered and plasticized,
yeah.
Right. They said, and overly choreographed go-go dancers. And they said, so nobody's hair moved, despite being out motorboating, surfing, getting wet, driving in convertibles. Everyone's hair was lacquered down in these green screens. And they said that all the screens had men fully clothed. They said even at one point, Elvis is at the beach in a turtleneck and trousers and a jacket with all these scantily clad, overly choreographed go-go girls shimmying and lots of close-ups of their butts and the pointy bras. So they said if you want this sort of genre, this Elvis even said this was the worst movie he ever made. He said he only did it because his manager told him they needed money. And,
that's the reason for a lot of them. So in other words, it's so terrible.
It's so bad. It's great. And I actually went and pulled up a couple of clips of it, and I laughed out loud. I mean, because everything that they mentioned here in this review, this quick review I gave, was in fact the deal. I mean, the lacquered hairdos, the ridiculous scantily clad women and fully dressed men. You'll love it for all its horribleness.
So if you've been listening to the
Clambake.
show, Clambake, starring Elvis Presley, if you've been listening to the show for a number of years, you can pretty much understand that Tim will find the most interesting, kitschy, hilarious stuff on deep discount. And then you have me, who's going to give you this.
Well, before you go back 1 second there, so I picked this initially. You know what attracted me? Do you see, so if you're watching in the video, do you see the cover of that?
Yeah.
I thought he was in a spaceship.
Yes. In fact, the way I know what you're getting at, Tim, I'm looking at it, and it looks like some kind of flying saucer, right?
Right. So I said, oh, Elvis is doing a sci-fi or a flying saucer movie. So I clicked on it, but that was just him in a motorboat. But again, the green screens were so bad in this whole thing that nothing came out right. So anyway.
I love stories like this. So
from
Clambake to an Academy Award-winning film called Witness.
Oh, my goodness. Can't be any different.
Yes, and what did your dad used to say? The Amish, the Amish.
The Amish.
Right?
We're going to be Amish. We're going to go. Until he went down and visited. He went down to the territory down in Lancaster County. He used to threaten us that we were going to pack up and move from Connecticut and become Amish. No electricity, no TV.
So this is a film that stars Harrison Ford as a police detective, Kelly McGillis as a Amish, or as Tim's dad used to like, the Amish woman.
The Amish.
And her son witnesses a murder, and it was actually done by another police officer. And it's by director Peter Weir, who did Picnic at Hanging Rock. But this is a Academy Award-winning neo-noir thriller. It's a clean movie, and what I mean by that is it takes place in Philadelphia and out in Pennsylvania, Dutch country. Great performances. It's one of those culture clashes kind of thing because the Amish the Amish are very different than they had to drive the buggies. There's no technology. And, it holds up really well. And so I would say that, pick it up. It's on 4K. It's been restored and it sparkles that way. I haven't seen the movie in quite a while and I have fond memories of it. So that's what I'm picking. And our new release this week is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which won the Academy Award for Best Animated Film last year. Stop motion puppetry. It's supposed to be an amazing film. I did not see it in the theaters, so I'm thrilled that I can get it on Criterion Collection, which Tim and I say Criterion is the gold standard for films because it will have commentary by him. It will probably have a lot of great behind-the-scenes documentary footage on the sets and the puppetry and the whole bit. So this is the release this week, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio from Criterion, and it's $35.99.
Jeez, that's we've got quite a selection here. Between Clambake and
Witness, Pinocchio.
Right. So head over to focusgroupradio.com. You'll be able to click on the deep discount logo there. Just get some last-minute gift ideas. We're in the middle of just finishing up Hanukkah, plus we've got Christmas comings and other holidays. Somebody told me there's 16 holidays between December and January.
It's a freight train going out of Korea.
All different cultures and folks. So, but get your last-minute gift ideas. I picked a movie starring Elvis, his last movie in the genre, the Citizen Kane of beach party movies, I said. Clambake. John picked a favorite of ours, Witness, with starring Harrison Ford. And the new release this week is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. So again, be sure to support our friends over there at Deep Discount. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got some shop talk as well as a business birthday for you. So stay tuned.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to the Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. Focusgroupradio.com is the site. You can learn about us, and you can also learn about Deep Discount, our partner here. And if you want to rewind and check out the segment we just did with them, we have some good movie picks. Tim always comes up with the absolute classic picks. I mean, come on, like Tim, you've come up over the years with some really great movies. In fact, if you bought every movie you recommended, you would have quite an unusual collection.
Odd collection.
But without further ado, it's time for our business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So our birthday today, December 13th, is John Henry Patterson. And this was one where I had to really look for a birthday, John. And I found this
one.
The
day was just devoid of birthdays?
It was devoid of birthdays for the way we like to do them. I mean, there were some other, someone who was president of, Chase Manhattan or something. But, this was John Henry Patterson. And it was, to me initially, at first read it, was like, he was the founder of the National Cash Register Company, NCR. And I thought, well, what is that all about? So I read a little more about it. So he was a business person and a salesperson. He also, aside from founding the National Cash Register Company, he also successfully promoted the city manager form of government. So we have him to thank here in Rehoboth for that. I don't know whether that's good or bad. But and he also helped with flood relief in Dayton. So he's from Dayton, Ohio. He graduated from Dartmouth College, and I laughed at this because it says he graduated from Dartmouth College, which we all know is an Ivy League and prestigious school, and went to work as a toll collector at a canal.
A toll collector.
And I thought it's kind of like people now saying where you're going to major in gender studies and you're working at the Chipotle getting bowls thrown at you. So but then he said that year he also began managing a Southern Ohio coal and iron company and became an investor and in a manufacturing company, which he and his brother ended up buying, which became the National Cash Register Company. And so what's interesting about this, they said when he constructed the factory, when they built the factory, they were the first ones to actually, because this was the era of sweatshops, so they were the first to actually put windows in. They put floor-to-ceiling windows in to let light in and be able to open the windows for people working in the factories, which was at the time, they said, groundbreaking. He also hired a famous landscape architect at the time named John Olmsted, and he created all these spacious lawns and landscaping and colorful plantings around the factory to make it look nice. And they also said that he wrote a 16-page handbook, he and his brother-in-law, which established the world's first sales training school for people selling. And so this was on the grounds of the National Cash Register Corporation. They sold cash registers, and it was what they called a comprehensive social welfare program for his factory workers. And they set up tents, and you did it in the summer. They did all this training for people. And at the time, they said if you had worked at the NCR, National Cash Register Company, it was referred to as America's model factory. And historians referred to the company as the father of industrial welfare. And the company had its actual own welfare department and was considered a pioneer at its time in American work. So their initiatives included, they were the first to do safety devices, drinking fountains for employees.
This is all in the factory, right?
This is all in the factory. Baths, actual baths, lockers, chairs with back support for the machine operators, indoor bathrooms, ventilation systems to provide clean air. He even went as far as having special provisions for the female workers that included their own restrooms, shorter work hours so they could take care of children, high back chairs, a women's dining room, and they provided lessons in domestic science. And they also were known for their, they did the first form of direct mail, where they would send pieces to a predetermined list of addresses. And they said it was also the world's first advertising campaign, because the cash registers would give you a receipt. And so the whole advertising campaign was get a receipt with what you buy. So they also said that if you had worked for the company, they said that it was really like getting an MBA. They said so many prominent businessmen were trained and fired by Patterson that some business historians regarded your experience at NCR as a rough equivalent of an MBA degree. He famously fired Thomas Watson, who went on to found IBM. And they said that he would often just fire people for very trivial things. They said he was a little bit of a tyrant. Sounds like Kim Jong-un. They said he would go up to an employee and say, "Why are the flags at half-staff today?" or "Why are the flags flying the way they are?" And if the answer wasn't correct, you'd get fired on the spot. And he also had an employee that was entered into an equestrian race and didn't do well. He fired him on the spot and said, "If you can't handle a horse, how are you going to handle man?" And,
my God, that's so random with anyway.
Yeah, so he was influenced United States business for a generation, they said. And between 1910 and 1930, that 1/6 of the United States business executives were former NCR executives and gone through the training program. Got in trouble for some violation of the Sherman Act, where they had some illegal competitive sales practices, but nobody went to jail.
Okay, I'm going to just say one or two quick things. First, the things that you rattled off, the innovations for the factory.
Yeah.
Break room, lockers, seats with backs, open
water
windows.
Fountains, air.
You would think this had been around all the time. And it's amazing that someone had to actually say, we're going to implement this as a part of the factory. The other thing that you brought up that I thought was intriguing was the grounds of NCR were designed by John Charles Olmsted, you said, right?
Yeah.
So he is the son of Frederick Law Olmsted, the designer of Central Park and Prospect Park in Brooklyn. I mean, and then you mentioned Watson and a whole bunch of people who worked under John Henry Patterson at NCR, and they're all like, it's almost like he's the Jack Welch of his time, right? Or people that came out of GE or something.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it. You're exactly right. He, when he died, there was no fortune around. Everybody thought that there would be this fortune. They had about $55 million in stock, and they offered it. The family offered it as a public offering, and which was the largest at the time, according to the New York Times, when they did it in 1926. But all the money they said he spent all the money from the company, he spent on these social welfare programs for their employees, to make sure the employees were taken care of. So when he died, there wasn't an awful lot of money. The company was sold so National Cash Register was sold in 1991, I believe, to AT&T. And then they had since sold it and broke it off or whatever, but it's still in business. They, excuse me, they sell electronic products, self-serve kiosks, point-of-sales terminals, telling machines, ATMs, check processing systems, and barcode scanners. In 2021, $7.2 billion in revenue.
So their DNA is still in changing money, like somehow either it's a mechanical register or it's electronic. This is I know you said you struggled to find this, but this is a good birthday. I like this. This is like something I've never heard of before.
Yeah, I never heard of him either. And but somebody who at his time, like you said, the Jack Welch of his time, so well regarded but cantankerous. So.
And you and I work for cantankerous people.
Yeah.
All right. I mentioned the excellent business birthday, by the way, and I just love all the intersections of some other famous people or their sons, like Olmsted.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned at the top of the show, I said, what's in a name? Well, Tim and I have an article that we found from, I want to say this was Fortune magazine or Forbes. It looks like it's Fortune. Hold on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's Fortune.
Forbes. Sorry, it's Forbes.
Oh, it is Forbes?
And the headline is pretty much the giveaway here. And basically, they've done these studies where they look and they say, okay, what's the impact on someone's first name, right? So the first letter of your name, the first letter could impact your career, research says. So they have some interesting stuff popped up. So new research suggests that the initial letter of your first name might influence your life choices, from career paths to residential preferences, states, cities, etc. Individuals are slightly inclined towards cities and professions that align with the starting letter of their first names. So earlier studies that were done a few years ago hinted at this phenomena. For instance, individuals named Dennis were overrepresented among dentists, according to the American Dental Association website. Similarly, those named Lauren or Lawrence represented a higher proportion of lawyers, according to the American Bar Association. People named George and Jeffrey demonstrated a higher likelihood of publishing in scientific journals related to the geosciences, and individuals named Lewis exhibited a disproportionate inclination to reside in St. Louis. That one made me laugh. The study was criticized, saying it wasn't broad enough, and so they actually did a larger study. And the current one they're fielding examined all first names on the U.S. Social Security Administration's website, 508 professions, and 14,856 cities. First names were favored over last because most individuals maintain the same first name throughout their lives. Their research indicated a greater propensity for individuals to pursue careers and reside in cities beginning with their names, as I said earlier. And it says that by extension, people also prefer cities and professions represented by these same letters. It's just a weird study. What do you think of this?
At first I thought, who would ever thought of this, right?
Yeah.
And so they said the researchers labeled this preference for cities and professions that you mentioned that start with the initial letter of your first name as nominative. Is that how you would say it?
Yep.
Nominative determinism, which, I think that you had to scientifically say it. And they said when they actually asked people about it, they were unaware. It was almost as if this was subconscious. And I'm sure after you mentioned how many different inclinations they did of this, that they certainly found some sort of common data. I wondered whether it was coincidence or not. And I thought of my own name, Tim. And I don't know what I do that would have begun with a Tim.
You and I are both.
Well, we talk. I don't know.
But you didn't go to school with a city that had a T.
No, and
you don't live in none of
never lived in a place with a T.
T, yeah. And
your
profession?
You were J, and it was the same thing, right? I mean, what was your major?
Yeah, graphic design, marketing, advertising. And in New York is not a J town.
Yeah.
So this was interesting to me. I just thought it was that they would find that dentists were dentists or like that kind of things. Do you think this is one of those weird things where they did the study, they find the data? It looks like it points to some interesting things, but at the end of the day, maybe it's just a random thing. Like when you watch a flock of birds fly, You're like, how do they do that, right? Like, well, okay.
Yeah, I wondered. So and they often talk about how names can affect, and they,
Your career,
particularly
yeah.
right, and particularly with some cultural names that people may get that may be, not homegrown in the U.S., for instance, and how sometimes it may affect people or what people's opinion would be, just making a opinion on you based on your name. And I remember studying the name Tim once, and they had said that there was never a leader named Tim. In other words, there was never somebody who led a country or led something. There might have been a senator here and there or something. Mm-hmm. And the only one that did then pop up was Tim Cook. I'm sorry, Tim Cook from Apple.
As a business leader.
As a business leader, but they also felt he also was, they think the name Tim is weak. For instance, it was viewed as a weak name, and there would never be a leader named Tim. The odd part for me is going through school, there were maybe a couple of Tims, here and there. When I worked at Subaru, I've never met so many Tims in my life. I couldn't
I'm so
figure it
glad
out.
you brought that up, because you had like 5 or 6 in the building, right?
Right there, and all within the sales and marketing area. All Tim, young Tim, old Tim, this Tim, that Tim. We all had different names because there were so many Tims. And I'd never worked at a place that had so many people, not even in college, not even in school were there that many Tims. So I don't know what it was about Subaru that seemed to have a lot of Tims that worked there. But have you encountered a lot of no one names their kids Tim and John anymore, do they?
Yes, they do.
Do they?
Timothy and John, and you and I had classic names from the 60s. Now, I was supposedly named after my great-grandfather, John Haig. And then I was also, and my uncle, John, has that same name. So my mom was carrying that through. But I'm also named after an apostle, right? And I'm Catholic, or I was raised Catholic. And but you were raised Episcopalian or Protestant?
Protestant. We were Methodist. My dad was Anglican.
And are there other Timothys in the family?
No, my mother broke the rule. There was lots of Roberts and Charles. Everybody's firstborn boys.
Oh, I like Charles. I don't know.
Lots of Roberts and Charles.
I don't see you as a Charles. I don't see you as a Charles.
And so my mother broke the mold and did Timothy and Richard, which were, and then there were some cousins that she's even to this day will say copied me because I've got a cousin Tim. But so no, it's my mom went off the chart. My dad wanted to call my brother Boyd.
B-O-Y-D?
B-O-Y-D, and my mother insisted no.
I think your mom might have.
I would have liked a cool name. My little nephew is in preschool, and my mother was telling me the kids' names were where he is are Penelope, Oscar. His 3 friends, Penelope, Oscar, and 7.
Oh, I like 7. That's funny.
So
as in the numeral 7.
Yeah, but I think maybe spelled a tad different or something. Maybe it's got a Y in it, Sevyan or something. But 7, Oscar and Penelope. And I thought Oscar and Penelope were certainly old names, right?
Yes, they are. Yeah,
like people were doing, older names with. Like I think our nieces' names were names maybe from the 20s. Catherine and Amanda and my nieces.
I heard I was a cashier. Her badge said Irma.
Irma.
That's a really older name, right?
Yeah.
Like that's IRM.
Irma, Bertha.
Yeah, exactly. These go back many
When I was in Ohio, there was a woman named Tim, which I thought was weird. But
unless her parents expected it to be a boy and they thought we're going to name her Tim anyway.
Is
that possible?
I think she spelled it T-Y-M-M.
Okay.
Like him, Tim.
Yeah, all right, I'll take it.
Which reminds me of Mary, the woman that she had hired this woman named Samaj. And Mary said, God, your name is so unique. I love it. Is that a family name? Where did your name come from? She goes, it's James backwards. They wanted a boy.
So, Tim, we're going to get totally nailed for this, but was it In Living Color or Mad TV when they did Famali Pajame?
Famali Pajame, yeah. There was a skit where it was always that white, crass, smoking the cigarette in the employment agency. And
that's
she comes
it,
out
and she
yelling,
calls out, Famali.
Like female pajamas, everybody's sitting there, and then finally a woman pops up. That's me, it's Famali Pajame, it's African. She goes, whatever, get in here. No, that In Living Color show or Mad TV, you couldn't do any of that anymore.
Not anymore. And boy, are they were hilarious. That was Mrs. Swan. Remember there was
my God, Mrs. Swan. Every stereotype in the world. The funniest one you turned me on to was when they did the Evander Holyfield QVC fashion show. And he's sitting there with that atrocious outfit on, and then the typical host, they're showing all this clothing from the boxer, and she says, "Ooh, looks like faux leopard." He says, "Faux 5, maybe 6 leopard." I watch it to this day, and I mean the crowd is laughing. So the audience, which is primarily African American, because they showed the audience was even laughing. It was hilarious.
Faux 5, maybe.
Right. Oh, it looks like, what do we have here? Looks like faux leopard. Faux 5, maybe 6 leopard. The big leopard coat.
Well, you and I do like to laugh.
Oh,
And unfortunately, we are of a generation that we probably shouldn't be laughing at some of the things we laugh at. But
well, it's Archie Bunker, right?
God
Norman
we have
Lear
DVDs.
Norman Lear who passed away, right? He changed the American generation. Mike Barnacle said something I thought was very smart, which I guess we've all kind of said it in many ways about Norman Lear. He said that he introduced America to people. He introduced America to Americans that a lot of people might not have known.
Yep, perfectly
And,
said. Yeah.
We didn't know a lot of these families or a lot of the people that were portrayed on many of the shows, or in some cases you did know them. But
Yep.
what a role he played in terms of culture in the U.S.
Transformational. Yeah.
Yeah. So hey everybody, thanks for joining us here on the Focus Group. John, thanks for the good stories this week, and we want to remind everybody to head over to Deep Discount. They've got for some last minute gift ideas. They've got a sale going on, of course, as they always have great bargains over there. This week I picked Clam Bake. John picked the movie Witness, and the new release this week is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
You pronounced that very well, Tim.
Well, I
Nicely
took
done.
Spanish. Guillermo Tin Marín de los Pincoes.
Way better than me.
Well, you were French.
That's right.
I'm guessing this is Spanish. Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
So remember to, again, head over to Deep Discount by going to our site, which is focusgroupradio.com. Click on the Deep Discount logo. While you're there, you'll also find our podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned, and which is released each Tuesday. So you can find all of our media there. Lots of people are on the road. Lots of people are out doing shopping, last minute hurries to parties and everything else. But remember to don't text and drive. Arrive alive, and we'll see you next time here on the Focus Group. Take care.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.